Namaste. This is David Hawthorne at astroview.com. Today's the 28th of December 2016. The following is the Vedic astrology reading for Carrie Fisher, based on the 21st of October 1956 at 12:49 p.m. in Los Angeles, California. Now, most of you know Carrie Fisher was a well-known actress who was a star in the original Star Wars movie. And she died recently from apparent heart attack. Now, using this systems approach to Vedic astrology as developed by Professor V.K. Chowdhury, we see that at the time of her birth, the 10th sign of the zodiac was ascending or rising 4 degrees 10 minutes of Capricorn. So Capricorn is an earth sign and a movable sign. Earth sign persons are generally very hardworking, dutiful, loyal, truthful, and ambitious. And movable sign persons have a tendency to be on the go. They're not afraid to go places and do things. In fact, for the Capricorn rising, in fact for all the movable signs, then the 4 kendras of life, the first house of self, the 4th house of home life, the 7th house of relationships, and the 10th house of career are movable signs. So these things change in life. In the 2nd house, we see the 11th sign Aquarius, with Mars in Aquarius at 20 degrees 44 minutes. This is the house of wealth, status, speech, and continuation of family life. So Mars in the 2nd house gave Carrie very direct and courageous speech. It also gave her some status through property, and because Mars rules the 4th house of parents, it gave her some status through her own parents. Her mother was a very well-known actress, Debbie Reynolds, and her father was a well-known singer, Eddie Fisher. In the 3rd house, we have the 12th sign Pisces. In the 4th house, the 1st sign Aries. In the 5th house, the 2nd sign Taurus. So this is an exalted moon at 1 degree 48 minutes in Taurus. And this is Ketu, K-E-T-U, the southern node of the moon at 5 degrees 56 minutes. And it's always opposite Rahu at 5 degrees 56 minutes. Now, moon in the 5th house gives a very maternal mind. Gives her royal thinking. And because moon is a feminine planet, we can say this gives her a feminine child. She does have a daughter. Now sometimes when moon ruling the 7th house has gone into the 5th house, there's a lot of emotional activity in relationships, very emotional relationships. And you can see the Ketu is within 5 degrees of the moon. If planets are within 5 degrees, there's an impact. If not, there is no impact. Ketu is also within 5 degrees of the ascendant degree. This is not an arbitrary number. This is called most effective point of every house. Because this number changes every 4 minutes of the day. It's very specific to the exact time of birth for a person. Any planet within 5 degree orb of the most effective point has an impact in the house it occupies and in the houses it aspects. So we could say that moon is within 5 degrees because this starts about 29 degrees in the previous sign, goes up to 9 degrees in this sign. But this is applicable to every house. So we could say this is a favorable moon sitting here. But because it is close to Ketu, and because Ketu is close to the ascendant degree, Ketu has an impact in this house. as does Rahu by 7th aspect. So this Rahu and Ketu influence is very much connected with the moon, which is marriage, relationships, partnerships, and peace of mind in the emotional state. So she had difficulties in relationships. There was a divorce, and then there was also some person who left her for a man. She was also discussed in her books of life that she had bipolar disorder and emotional stress. So it would have been good to wear white clothing and a single pearl to strengthen the moon. Now, Ketu on the moon does bring mystical experiences and spiritual experiences. But Ketu can sometimes also bring in psychedelic drugs. And Rahu causes some cravings and some addictions. So there's definitely emotional disturbance here for her. And this disturbance with relationships. In the 6th house, 3rd sign Gemini, 7th house, 4th sign Cancer, ruled by the moon. In the 8th house, 5th sign Leo, with Jupiter at 28 degrees, 42 minutes, and Venus at 24 degrees, 56 minutes. Now, Venus rules his 10th house, 7th sign of Libra, which is the house of career and professional life. It's in the house of research and ancient knowledge, mystical experiences. But there can be some setbacks and transformations and vulnerability with her professional life. Jupiter, ruling the 12th house, the 9th sign of Sagittarius, is conjunct Venus within 5 degrees. So this can connect Venus, ruling the 10th house of career, with Jupiter ruling the 12th house of foreign lands. So she had an international following. And she often traveled abroad. But Jupiter, ruling the 12th house in the 8th house, gives trouble with insomnia and separate sleeping arrangements with one's spouse, and some lack of fulfillment on the level of intimacy. This can cause trouble with her diet, especially with sugar products, and it can cause trouble for the kidneys, the pancreas, and reproductive organs. This can also cause losses and expenses in her professional life. Because Jupiter rules his 12th house, which is a Dustan Bhava, it's an inauspicious house. It is not a favorable influence on Venus. And Venus becomes very weak in this position, so that weakens her kidneys, pancreas, reproductive organs, can limit the number of children. The weak Jupiter denies male children. In the 9th house, we have the 6th sign Virgo, and this is Mercury at 21 degrees, 1 minute of Virgo. So this is the exaltation sign for Mercury, its own sign of Virgo, its exaltation sign of Virgo, and its Multricone sign of Virgo. This is very good. So this is the 9th house, which is the house of Dharma. What we came to do to support our evolution. And Mercury is writing and communications. So she has written a number of books and screenplays and was involved in editing screenplays for other writers. So this is a very good position here. Now K2 at 5 degrees throws an aspect 5 houses away, so it does disturb. This can cause some inflammation, some trouble with the respiratory canal, and fluctuations of self-confidence. Generally, when Mercury's in a house that is under an affliction, the person has trouble making decisions and keeping decisions. In the 10th house, we have the 7th sign Libra, and this is Sun in Libra, royal Sun. Sun in the 10th house gives leadership, opens a lot of doors for a person, and makes them not subordinate to other persons. But Sun rules this 8th house, so technically it's a functional malefic planet. So it does cause some transformations and vulnerability in her professional life. And because Sun is close to 5 degrees, its 7th aspect into the 4th house is not ideal for her parents or her childhood. So Sun, ruling the 8th house, caused obstructions, delays, setbacks, disappointments, accidents, and even death-like experiences connected with parents, childhood, and domestic peace in her own marriage. Now, it doesn't matter what we find in the chart, it matters whether we fix what we find. So if she had a proper systems approach astrologer, then she could have done the remedies for her chart. Now, Sun is technically afflicting this house and the 4th house. So this weakens the Sun, which is the heart. And Sun is in the debilitation sign, so it further becomes weak. And the landlord for Sun is Venus in the 8th house, afflicted by Jupiter ruling the 12th house. So she needed to strengthen Venus, and she needed to strengthen Sun. So a diamond and a ruby would have been good for the chart. But the Sun, ruling the heart, the stomach, digestion, cardiovascular system, is utterly weak. The remedy for the Sun also is to help one's father and father-in-law on Sundays. In the 11th house, we have the 8th sign Scorpio. And this is Saturn, 7 degrees 53 minutes of Scorpio. This is Rahu at 5 degrees 56 minutes of Scorpio. Rahu and Ketu in this chart are in their debilitation signs, which is not ideal. But Rahu, more importantly, afflicts Saturn. This is about 6 degrees, this is 8 degrees. Ketu about 6 degrees afflicts Saturn. And Saturn is in a house afflicted by Rahu and Ketu. And Saturn rules the 2nd house of continuation of family life. So it caused discontinuation of family life constantly. Her parents divorced when she was 2. She went through a divorce, never married the love of her life. This probably caused trouble with the teeth, neck, back, spine, knees, joints, ankles, and shins. And Saturn is Ayush Karaka, significator for longevity of life. So this cuts short her lifespan. It caused worry, fear, phobias, impatience, and distrust of others. Sometimes she was quite difficult to manage, according to her own writing. And in the 12th house, the 9th sign Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. So we see that Mars in the 2nd house gave the courageous speech, status from her parents and property. We can see Moon in the 5th house gave her a daughter, emotional relationships. Ketu in the 5th house gave her a mystical mind, can be connected with drugs as well. Jupiter in the 8th house gave windfalls in foreign lands, but setbacks with intimacy. Venus in the 8th house gave her a vulnerable and international career. Mercury in the 9th house gave her long-distance travel and writing and communication skills. She was frequently traveling abroad, by the way. Sun in the 10th house gave her a royal career. She even played the royal Princess Leia in the Star Wars. Saturn in the 11th house gave her income from hard work and from family money. Whenever the second ruler is in the 11th house, there can be enormous income from hard work. Well, there can be money from family, and then the Rahu makes it enormous gains. See, Rahu in the 11th house gives large gains and friendships, but with manipulative people who use drugs. Manipulative and deceptive people. I think she had quite a few of those in her life. Both Rahu and Ketu afflicted her moon, and they cause emotional stress and bipolar disorders. Debilitated sun and the afflicted moon contributed to her health problems and heart ailments. For Capricorn, sun is the primary significator for health. Because there's no Multricone sign in the 1st house, there's no Multricone sign in the 6th house. So sun becomes the significator for health. Even though it's well placed, it's afflicting the house it occupies. And it is debilitated. And the landlord for sun is the badly placed and weak Venus afflicted by Jupiter ruling end of life. And the Rahu and Ketu also both are very close to Saturn, which is Ayush Karaka, significator for longevity of life. And the 8th house is Ayushstan, the house of longevity, ruled by the weak sun. I think she came into her power, see, in 1977. That's when Star Wars was quite successful. And that's Rahu. Rahu can give charisma, fame, fortune, and ambition. It makes huge increase. So it increased her wealth and status during that time. But it was Maya, an illusion. She went into her Saturn main period about 5 years ago. Saturn is in the house of gains. It's with Rahu, fame and fortune. So there was another Star Wars movie that she's been working on the last couple of years. But Saturn is totally afflicted by Rahu and Ketu. Subperiod was Mercury, and Mercury is is in a house afflicted by Ketu. And Ketu is coming up in March, which is not good. See, none of these subperiods following are favorable. This is her birth chart. The inner circle is her birth chart. It's just the circular format. The outer circle is the transit chart. So because Rahu and Ketu are on the most affecting point, they afflict the houses they occupy and the houses they aspect. Whenever Rahu and Ketu are in even signs, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12, then they can only afflict planets in the even signs, in the birth chart or in the transit chart. So Sun and Moon and Mercury Mercury was the operating planet. They were all in the 12th house in transit, the house of end of life. This transit, Jupiter had just, look at right close to Mercury, just had gone over Mercury, which was the operating planet. This is a major clue here. Mars and Ketu in exact conjunction. And this Rahu was afflicting this Sun. The fifth aspect, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, a couple of days ago, Sun was at 10 degrees. Under the affliction of Rahu. Sun ruling the 8th house of death, transiting the 12th house, end of life, afflicted by Rahu, operating out of the 8th house. So these are the main points from the chart for Carrie Fisher. She was a wonderful woman, great actress, very entertaining. People really appreciated her. She got a lucky break with the Sun in the 10th house, royal planet in the house of professional life. So if you have any questions on her chart, you can send me an email to david@astroview.com. Namaste.